Hi there. So we're looking at one other group of reptiles here, so lizards and snakes. And I did group them together on purpose because they are part of a group that we kind of look at together. So that group is the order Squamata. So Squamata literally translates as scale bearers. And we see a few different examples of Squamata here. So the primary ones that we would think about would of course be lizards and snakes. We also have a group called amphisbaenians, which look very snake-like in appearance, but they do have a few key differences from snakes. They're named after an ancient mythological creature that basically had a head on either side, one that was trying to eat the other. And then mosasaurs, as far as an extinct reptile, are also part of this group as well. They're the largest reptile order, so again, as far as reptiles go, we see a lot of diversity here. They all have movable jaw bones, which we see that a lot with snakes in terms of their ability to unhinge the jaw to eat very large prey items compared to their head size. And they all have a three-chambered heart, like we see with most reptiles. As far as reproduction, this is the first time that we end up seeing the paired hemipenes in males. So males actually have two different intromittent organs. Typically, during reproduction, they only use one of them at a given time. So again, here when we see two anoles, for example, breeding, it would just depend on which hemipene was closer to the female's cloaca as far as which one that they would be using. Mating rituals are sometimes involved with reproduction in Squamata, so sometimes we will see males display for females or males kind of fighting off one another. Female snakes can store sperm up to 6 years, so again, waiting for kind of an ideal condition before laying eggs. They're capable of what we call parthenogenesis, so this is where we have females producing eggs without a male contributing sperm at all, even though they are also capable of doing sexual reproduction if there is a male present. So sometimes we see that. And even though a lot of these species are oviparous, a lot of them lay eggs, some of them can be viviparous. They do give birth to live young in some cases. So again, if you're looking at this video on Classroom, these clips will kind of give you an impression of some of these things. This video is all about side-blotched lizards and how there are males that have different strategies for attracting and breeding females. This video clip here is about a confrontation between two elaborate rat snakes. Excuse me, I think it's just that the elaborate part is the actual ritual. But they are competing with one another over a female. So it shows kind of conflict between two males, kind of a display between the two of them. Here on this clip, we're talking about parthenogenesis in Komodo dragons, so that has been observed with this species. They're not the only one, but that's one of the key species we've seen that in. And then this clip here is just all different snakes giving live birth. There are some lizards that are capable of it as well, but you can kind of see here from even the still for the video that the babies kind of look like they're wrapped in a little cellophane wrap. They're a little bit more developed than they would be if they were laying a leathery egg. So as far as Squamata diet, like we said before, they can unhinge their jaws to swallow large prey. Lizards are typically carnivores, ambush predators or foragers as far as how they get their food, so either surprising them or hunting along the ground until they find what they're looking for. But there are also many omnivores, so again, ones that eat both meat and veggies, and very few herbivores. There are some lizards that only eat plants. Snakes are all carnivores, and most of them are ambush predators. So again, they're kind of guided by those principles as far as their diet. Snakes also have backwards facing teeth and an extended glottis. Both of these are adaptations to help them while they're swallowing the prey. The backward facing teeth make it to where the prey isn't going to be very likely to push back out. It helps kind of keep guiding them toward the throat. And the extended glottis is basically an extension of the windpipe that can be projected out of the mouth. So while they're swallowing prey, there's still a clear pathway for them to be able to breathe during the process of them swallowing. When we look down here at the skull of the amphisbaenian here at the bottom, they are all carnivores and they have interlocking teeth that tear chunks and eat small prey with them. So again, the tooth structure is a little bit different when we're looking at snakes by comparison. And these video clips, again, kind of show some of these things in more detail. This shows chameleon tongues at work again. This is kind of that whole principle of a tongue shooting out of the mouth. That's almost exclusively chameleons for the most part. There aren't too many other animals that have that feature. So that clip kind of shows what that looks like. The marine iguana here shows an example of basically a herbivorous reptile, one that only eats algae, just a clip of it grazing. This clip here shows a couple of snakes, and it shows that extended glottis. It's a little bit more obvious in this video than some other ones. This video down here shows a black mamba taking down prey, so again, venom being part of what we're looking at in terms of how these animals will sometimes lead to the consumption of food. And then this one here has a python swallowing an antelope. So again, showing the size range that a larger snake can take and swallow much, much larger prey. As far as locomotion goes, lizards move depending on how much their legs extend them off the ground. So again, some of them can't move very super duper fast if the legs don't carry them super far above the ground. It just depends. Some of them are capable of switching to bipedal locomotion. So again, moving with 2 feet. Bi is 2, pedal refers to the foot. So some of them can move with just 2 feet to achieve greater speeds. Geckos have toe pads for climbing surfaces. They aren't really sticky. There is a video that helps explain this a little bit better. That's a TED Ed video. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Chameleons have special toe arrangements for gripping branches, and they also have prehensile tails. So we see both of them at work here. That toe arrangement kind of gives them a nice grip on branches that they use for their life in trees. And that prehensile tail, prehensile in this case means it's capable of moving on its own. So it kind of acts like a fifth limb to help them with moving along. So when we start looking at squamata that don't have legs, the locomotion's a little bit different. So legless lizards, snakes, and amphisbaenians depend on muscle movements in their underside to move, and they can move up some sheer surfaces like this if they have enough little notches to be able to lay their body into. So they are actually capable of moving in quite a variety of environments despite not having limbs. And some squamata can glide, both lizards and snakes. There's at least one example in each. So if we're looking at our video clips here, again, if you're looking at this in classroom and looking at these video clips, this one has a basilisk lizard running across water, bipedal locomotion. This one talks a little bit about van der Waals forces and chemistry and how that helps geckos with moving along flat surfaces. This one shows different snake locomotion in terms of how fast they can move and the patterns their bodies make. This one shows a little bit of that muscular movement on the underside of their bodies. This one shows amphisbaenia movement in general, especially with those little segments along their body. This one shows an example of a legless lizard. And then this last clip has examples of gliding squam mates in terms of snakes and lizards that are capable of gliding. As far as defense mechanisms, we see a decent variety here. Camouflage is a big one, including changing color, although color change is mostly for communication and things like chameleons. Tail autotomy is this principle here where the tail will drop off of the body and continue to move and kind of distract the predator while the actual lizard will go and regrow that tail eventually. Some of them have spikes, like our horned lizard here. Some of them have venom, like when we see vipers with these fangs that can inject venom. Playing dead, like the hognose snake here. Spreading skin flaps, so we see this with like frilled lizards and with cobras where they will spread a flap of skin to make themselves look bigger. And then reflex bleeding has to be one of the weirdest ones. So again, horned lizards are capable of shooting compressed blood out of their eyes, out of the membranes in there, the blood vessels in there. So that is a weird defense mechanism that they do have. These video clips, again, will show them in a little bit more detail. This one talks about the principles behind chameleon color change, a little bit more detail. Now they use it more for communication. This one has tail autotomy of a lizard. This one talks about not only how venom is extracted, but some of the functions into making it anti-venom. This is the same thing for a venomous species of lizard, the Gila monster. There aren't very many venomous lizards, but there are a few, so that one kind of helps explain that part. This one shows the playing dead behavior of the hognose snake and some of the things they go through to convince animals that they are, in fact, playing dead, at least. This one shows the skin flaps with the frilled lizard, and then this one shows that blood-shooting behavior with the horned lizard. Here we're going to talk a little bit about the Jacobson's organ or vomeral nasal organ that we see. And again, there are multiple animals that have this feature, but it's very prominent in snakes especially. It helps them sense airborne chemicals. It basically works like their sense of smell. They're collecting it, though, differently than we do. We breathe it in. They have to flick their tongue in order to be able to do that. The forked tongues help snakes and lizards sense that the chemicals are coming from above and below. Again, that's why they flick their tongue up and down, or left and right. That's why that tongue is usually forked into two pieces, so it can indicate the left or the right. When they draw those chemical signals out on their tongue, they put it back into their mouth, and then they can help that information travel directly to the brain. So it's a pretty short pathway to get to the brain where it can be processed, and then they will know where their prey is located through smell. Another adaptation that a lot of squamates have, especially certain species of snakes, are pit organs. So these help with detection of heat. They work in total darkness, so this is an optimal time for these animals to be able to hunt. When the night is already kind of cool, and those heat signatures will show up that much more vividly. The infrared radiation hits a membrane of tissue in the pit, and again, we see like labial pits here along the mouths of things like certain constrictors, and we see paired pits between the nostril and the eye on pit vipers here, like rattlesnakes and things like that. So when it hits the tissue inside of the pit, ion channels open up, and that flows to the nerve cells. An electrical signal is sent to the brain that the prey is nearby. It helps them recognize that heat. These same types of receptors in mammals help detect pungent scent irritants like mustard plants or wasabi. So again, it's a very strong reaction. So again, I hope that this video helped to clarify a little bit where snakes and lizards fall as opposed to other reptiles. They're very closely related to one another. Snakes do have some remnants of legs that, again, we can kind of trace to common ancestors that they had with lizards. So we do group them together for this reason. So I hope that this video helped explain where these animals compare to other reptiles.